Good afternoon. I formally declare open this council meeting of Colac Otway Shire Council on the 15th of December 2021. Almighty God, we seek your blessing and guidance in our deliberations on behalf of the people of the Colac Otway Shire. Enable this council's decisions to be those that contribute to the true welfare and betterment of our community. I would like to start this afternoon by acknowledging the traditional custodians and lawmakers of this land, their elders past and present, and welcome any descendants here today. I would like to advise that all council meetings are recorded and live streamed with the exception of confidential matters. This includes the public participation sections of meetings. The live stream recording of this afternoon's meeting will be available on the website as soon as practical. By participating in open council meetings, individuals consent to the use and disclosure of the information they share at the meeting, including any personal and/or sensitive information. Please note that it is an offence to make an unauthorised recording of the meeting. Can I ask that council staff record all those present today? Okay, there are nil apologies or leaves of absence. Now moving on to question time. The Colac Otway Shire encourages community input, and integral to this is the opportunity provided to ask questions at council meetings. A maximum of 30 minutes is allowed for question time. Community members wishing to ask questions of council by video conference were requested to register their intention to do so before 5 p.m. on Monday the 13th of December 2021. No requests were received. I have received questions in writing from Mr James Judd and Mr Jason Schramm. Each question received will be read out and a response will be provided by the relevant member of the executive management team. Responses will be provided in writing following the meeting. Okay, questions submitted from Mr James Judd. Question 1, on the 6 claimed toilets managed by the Colac Otway Shire Council in Colac, how many of these are on private property or have requirements that must be provided before access to a location is granted, when at least 4 of those claimed to exist have restrictions on hours and days they can be accessed? Plus at least 2 cannot be used on any public holiday or Sunday when this council is looking to stage some events that will have a large influx of people to the Colac area on some Sundays. Response from General Manager, Environment and Infrastructure.
Through the Mayor, and thank you Mr Judd for the question. Of the public toilets owned and managed by Colac Otway Shire in Colac, none are on private property. However, there are 3 on Crown land, the Colac Visitor Information Centre, Lake Foreshore Car Park and Barongarook Creek Car Park, for which Council is the Committee of Management. Of the 6 facilities, 3 are open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, including public holidays. The toilets at Copac and the Visitor Information Centre are open during venue opening times, and the Hesse Street Comfort Station is open all days of the year, however is locked at night from 6 p.m. to 7 a.m.
Question 2. Has the Colac Otway Shire Council yet established a reserve fund for the costs of replacement of solar panels when it has been claimed by Council that these only have a 10-year warranty on them? So, if to be replaced before end of warranty period, the first installed by Council will soon need to be replaced. Response from General Manager, Environment and Infrastructure.
Through the Mayor, Council does not currently operate a reserve fund for asset renewal. We allocate renewal capital works each year in the budget based on risk and the priority of the asset.
Okay, question 3. How does the Colac Otway Shire Council propose to obtain all the extra land for open space and playing fields needed if the Colac 2050 growth plan is to be introduced, since accepting money instead of land when an area is rezoned and subdivided will add no available land to what then exists? Do not forget that Council's claim from rezoned land can only be paid out of proceeds provided by developers after any money calculated as due to the Victorian State Government is paid in full. When the state introduced a super tax on lands once rezoned by councils in the Victorian State Budget for 2021-2022. Response from General Manager, Development and Community Services.
Through you, Mayor. Through residential land development, council can acquire public open space contributions as a land and/or cash contribution. As Colac continues to grow, particularly to the west as per the Colac 2050 growth plan, it is likely that further land will be acquired from land developers for public open space. The Deans Creek Corridor Outline Development Plan will guide the type, amount and location of future public open space required to cater for the needs of our growing population.
Okay, question 4. Were the rate notices issued by the Colac Otway Shire Council for the 21-2022 rating year produced after all charges had been authorised by Council, since minutes for closed meetings on days submissions heard on rates and budget passed not presented to Council for authorisation until over 2 months after rate notices issued and sent out, plus some had already been required to make some payment also well after final date to object to rate notices had long been passed prior to those minutes presented to be passed by Council. Response from General Manager, Corporate Services.
Thank you for the question. The 2021-22 Council budget and the 2021-25 Revenue and Rating Plan were adopted by Council on the 24th of June 2021. Minutes for that Council meeting were subsequently confirmed at the Council meeting on the 28th of July 2021. The 2021-22 rates notices were issued on the 10th of August 2021. They therefore included rates and charges that had been duly adopted by Council in its budget. Objections to valuations on the 2021-22 rates notices closed on the 10th of October 2021. People wishing to pay by instalments were required to pay the first instalment by the 30th of September 2021. Any objection received that is ultimately successful results in the subsequent instalment amounts being amended.
Okay, question 5. Why has the Colac Otway Shire Council rushed ahead to find land that could be developed to accommodate a much larger population, yet refused to make certain all needed facilities to cater for a larger population will exist first? This is typical of the shocking short-sighted developments of extended Melbourne over many decades that I have watched closely since the end of World War II in 1945, when many facilities were not in opened up areas over 40 years later. Response from General Manager, Development and Community Services.
Through you, Mayor, the Colac Eliminate Social Infrastructure Needs Assessment, which was undertaken as part of the Colac 2050 Growth Plan, indicated that Colac already has much of the social and community infrastructure required to cater for a population of 20,000 people. Further work will be undertaken as part of the Deans Creek Outline Development Plan to determine the community facilities required to service the growth in population.
Okay, question 6. Item 10.4, Irrawilpy Road Planning Scheme Amendment C120 Cola Bakerland Development Plan. Under key information number 3, the locations of roads is not all correct. So will this item be amended to show Sinclair Street South should be west, not as claimed east, as a boundary of the site? Response from General Manager, Development and Community Services.
Through you, Mayor, thanks for the pick-up, Mr Judd. It's referring to information in the actual council report rather than the amendment documentation. All planning scheme amendment documentation will be reviewed to ensure it is accurate before being placed on public exhibition early in 2022.
Okay, last question. Is it legal to seek to sell land in Bruce Street, Colac, since officers claim this is in accordance with disposal of council lands under the Local Government Act 1989, when the Victorian State Government introduced a new Local Government Act 2020 early in 21 to replace the 1989 Act. Now much of this new Act is in use. Response from General Manager, Development and Community Services.
Through you, Mayor, the proposed land sale is compliant with both the Local Government Act 1989 and Local Government Act 2020.
Thank you. I'll now note Jason Shurham isn't here. He will receive responses in his questions to his questions in writing. Okay, we'll now move to questions from the gallery. Can I have a show of hands so I can get an understanding of how many people would like to ask a question? Who would like to ask a question? Anyone? Oh. Anyone? Don't all ask at once. All right. Okay, no one wants to ask a question? No. Okay. All right, then that will finish question time then. Okay, we've received no petitions or joint letters. Are there any declarations of interest, please? No, there are no declarations of interest. Okay, I propose that we move to confirm the minutes from the Colac from the council meeting held on the 24th of November 2021. Do I have a mover? Councillor McCracken, do I have a seconder? Councillor Bell, is it to be opposed? No. Councillors, I will now call for a vote. All those in favour? The item's carried 7-0. Okay. Okay, now we move to item 10.1, the Bruce Street land sale. The purpose of this report is to affirm the strategic outcomes for the project and confirm a preferred way forward, the project approach for the sale of land at 36 to 52 Bruce Street, Colac. Do councillors have any questions of officers? Councillor Hart.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor, through you. In relation to the cut-off wall that is required, because this is near an old landfill, who will own that wall and the land that it's on once the land is developed? And will council be required to buy back the wall or buy back the land? How will that work?
Thanks, Councillor Hart. Through you, Mayor. A developer who purchases this site and develops it for housing would need to build the cut-off wall along the northern boundary. That wall would be transferred to council as an asset as part of a reserve on a plan of subdivision, so it would be vested in council at no cost to council as part of the subdivision process.
Councillor Potter.
Not a question, Mayor, but can I foreshadow that I've had some assistance preparing some words in relation to a motion I'd like to move regarding this item, please.
Thank you. Are there any further questions? Councillor Potter, you foreshadowed a motion.
Yeah, I have, Mayor. Just checking that it's the right one, it looks like it. Mayor, those words that are in front of us, I'd like to move that, please.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Hart, is it to be opposed? Okay. Okay, Councillor Potter is the mover.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. Look, some time ago, council resolved to sell this land in Bruce Street, being part of an old landfill, in response to the need for residential lots in Colac. Officers developed a process to achieve this once council resolved to sell it, and after considering various options, put an option in front of councillors which they endorsed, with councillors adding an overrider to include or to seek a 15% ratio of social housing in that development. We took some public submissions in relation to the proposal. There was only a small number of submissions. Some people were against the development. One submitter was against the high ratio of social housing. But we took on board their comments and continued along the process that we commenced. With a new CEO at the helm and with considerations about the process that we'd started, the process for the sale of this land was paused, and quite rightly we sat back and said, well, is this the right way to go about it? This is in the interests of the community. We have to get the best community outcome. So whilst the target is the same, I'm proposing that we change paths to achieve that outcome. And I also am proposing that we specify what type of social housing outcome we achieve to give potential purchasers clarity about the expectations of council. We have an opportunity to address what really is the remit of state and federal governments in relation to lack of social housing in this community. Well, it's across the country, but we'll talk about this community. It's not our job to solve it, but we are in a position to do something. And councillors, I hope you see that this motion does give a social housing outcome without perhaps impacting on the purchase price too greatly. The 15% that we originally applied definitely scared some developers off. I think what this proposal is very reasonable. It allows for clarity, social housing outcome, and gives a clear way forward that we can achieve the sale of this land that council has set out to do.
Thank you. Councillor Hart.
Yeah, I'll reserve me.
Councillor McCracken.
Thanks, Mayor. Look, I do sort of oppose this reluctantly. I guess the main reasons why is that I think we certainly heard back from a number of submitters that the social housing aspect of this, in the first instance, was 15%, and that was a big challenge. And it's probably my preference that we try and maximise the financial return for council with going a 0% social housing for the blocks of land. The idea behind that would be to obviously maximise the financial return and find another way to sort of meet that social housing outcome. And it doesn't necessarily mean that that social housing outcome won't be achieved, but I just think if we do it in this particular way with allocating 3 particular blocks of at least 400 square metres, that's locking us into an outcome. And I can understand why you'd want to do that, because at least you've got it there and it's done and, you know, you've got your outcome. But I think in some ways it's sort of limiting what could be. Of course, what I'm suggesting, there is some risk in that because you don't know how much financial return you're going to get. Yeah, certainly I acknowledge that, but at the same time, I think you've got to try and maximise what you're going to get out of this, and the only way to do that is to, you know, listen to the feedback that we've heard and sort of take social housing out of the equation and use what funds we might be able to maximise out of this for a benefit later on in conjunction with someone else, like, you know, the big build project. So as much as I really do respect what's being put forward, Chris, I really do, and I'm not necessarily, you know, dead hard against it. My preference is just for maybe a different way.
Does any other councillor wish to speak? Councillor White.
I don't think it's any secret that I'm a great supporter of social housing, and I just want to thank Councillor Potter for the work he's done on this and thinking it through and coming up with perhaps a more palatable option that will hopefully attract some developers who also see the benefits of providing social housing. As we all know, and it's been quoted a number of times, that there is such a shortage, and around here there's a huge shortage as well. And this will create some great opportunities for people who can't access the mainstream housing market. And I think to support something like that as a council is showing some leadership and recognising that not everybody is equal in terms of accessing the housing market. So thanks, Councillor Potter. I think we are maximising our opportunities with this sale of Bruce Street and broadening what we're doing in terms of giving people opportunity.
Any other councillor wish to speak? Councillor Hart.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll be supporting this resolution. The particular site at Bruce Street does have some added complexity from the cut-off wall and the cost of that wall. And it is true, as Councillor Potter pointed out, that with the 15% requirement for social housing, we did get some offers to buy the land. So there were people interested in developing the land. But at the same time, I think Councillor McCracken's probably right. There would have been some people who didn't tender for that. I think the suggestion that Councillor Potter has come up with, which is essentially 3 lots of land, minimum size of 500 square metres each, to council at no cost, or a similar arrangement if it's with a social housing provider, that this is a way of still having some social housing. It would, if there's 60 blocks in this area, it would equate to about 5%. But I mean, the beauty of this arrangement, it doesn't have the moving target. The 15% was a bit of a moving target. It is 3 blocks of land, and anyone looking at this would have a clear picture of what's being required. I think the value from this both comes as a financial consideration for the sale, the development of blocks of land that can be sold on the open market. We know there's a shortage of blocks of land, and the other aspect, the social housing. It's those 3 things together which give the best value for the community, and I think this is an opportunity that we can take. And it also, what Councillor Potter has come up with is similar to what was made, or there was a suggestion in one of the submitters. While the submitter didn't really support the social housing being part of it, the submitter said that if you are going to do it, you should keep it around that 5% mark. And although this isn't a percentage, 3 blocks will roughly be either a little bit less or a little bit more than 5%, depending on how many lots they get. I think this is an excellent way forward, and I look forward to getting a report in the coming months that the land's actually, so we can actually sell the land and eventually see some housing on this site.
Councillor Potter, you have a right of reply.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor, and just want to thank all councillors for their words, and just repeat that I'm grateful for the CEO and officers pausing the process that we started. There was some criticism from those outside about the process, and I understand that, but plans and strategies have to be fluid, and this has proven to be so, and we've taken a deep breath. We've reevaluated which way we're going, and I think this will achieve the outcome for the community that we all expected.
Councillors, I'll now call for a vote. All those in favour? All those against? The item is carried 6-1. Now we move to item 10.2, the Colac Otway Shire Community Awards. The purpose of this report is to discuss options for the Community Award categories and ceremony dates. Do councillors have any questions of officers? Councillor Hart.
Yeah, thank you. Just some clarity around the Community Service Award in particular, I think. Is someone excelled in perhaps a sporting endeavour or an environmental endeavour, or perhaps in the arts, would they be eligible for one of, potentially for to be nominated for one of these awards?
Through the Mayor, yes, Councillor Harts, they would, through categories A and B, which is Citizens of the Year and Young Citizens of the Year, depending upon age. So those categories be for excellence in any area, being sports, business, arts. So for any achievements can be eligible ones of those categories.
Are there any other questions? Councillor White.
Not to put you on the spot, but I believe it's been difficult in the past. There's been at some points difficult to get nominations and get the community involved, and I'm just wondering if we've got any thoughts about how we might ramp that up a bit and get more community engagement.
Through the Mayor, yeah, look, over a period of time, it's we have had some challenges in getting nominations for the 5 awards that we've had over that period. Whichever way council determines to go tonight, we would need to essentially start now and really ramp up. Obviously, it's not a great time over the Christmas New Year period, but it would need to be a sustained effort, and we would be reaching out to all our networks as well as advertising and social media and the likes. So we'd be calling on everyone in the community to think about people that they could nominate.
Okay, any other questions? No. Councillors, the officers have provided a recommendation with the report for our consideration. Does any councillor wish to move a motion in relation to this matter? Councillor Potter.
Mayor, I think there's another set of words somewhere. That motion, yes. No, that's not quite right either. Clarify the words for us, Councillor McCracken.
I might be able to assist. You might have a fourth point there which would say something along the lines of have a review of the event and the awards afterwards. So a fourth dot point, number 4. And that review would, happen in a councillor briefing session. Is that, yeah?
And remove the...
Yeah.
which might have been what you had up there, Marlo, a minute ago. But yeah.
So that's the first one. I've got a couple of others that I'll mention, and if you don't like it, well then don't include
Is this your motion, Councillor McCracken?
Well, I think, Councillor Potter, if you're happy, cut me off if you're not comfortable with what I'm saying, okay?
Look, I'll move it, Mayor, but Councillor McCracken's helping with a couple of words. I will cut him off if I'm not happy with his words.
Thank you.
You happy if I keep going? I was going to say that the Community Service Award, you could put multiple, then a dash, group or individual. So that means that, you can have one or more being awarded. Just to make it clear. Sorry?
Councillor Potter, you're the mover. Is it to be seconded?
And we're going to capture those words probably. Yes, yep.
Councillor Hart, you had a question?
Mayor, I'm probably prepared to second this, but the wording on to Community Service Award, I think I understand what is being suggested, but I think it could read a little bit better. So Community Service Award, and it might say this could be an individual, group or multiple award. I wonder if that was in the bracket, this could be an individual, group or multiple award, just to give that clarity, if that's the intent that I think it was. And if that's the way it goes, I'm happy to second it, Mayor.
All right, Councillor Hart is the seconder. Is it to be opposed? No, Councillor Potter is the mover.
Thanks, Mayor, and thanks, staff, for getting to this. This has been a bit fluid getting to this point. And look, first of all, this I guess this discussion has been brought about by motion Councillor McCracken successfully moved to have a look at this very awards event. And there was a survey done across the community. There was quite a large number of responses. It wasn't the majority of the community, of course, but it gave us an indication about what the community were thinking. And my view has always been that these awards, whilst held on Australia Day, and Australia Day does still exist, and we will be doing citizenship ceremony on Australia Day, and everyone will be welcome to come and join us in that and sing the national anthem and have a cup of tea. But I've always viewed these as community awards. It's just that we presented them on Australia Day, and this did receive some negative feedback from the community because some people felt that they couldn't participate or congratulate the recipients of this award because it was on Australia Day. This motion moves it for 1 year just to try it on to see if we can revamp and be more inclusive. And councillors discussed at length, well, where do we move it to? And Kana, whilst not having been held the last couple of years, is a very successful community event. And I'd like to congratulate the Kana committee for welcoming this suggestion by councillors with open arms and giving this a trial at Kana will, I hope, really revamp the interest in these awards. It will open up the community participation, and I think it's sensible to give this a run for 12 months, conduct a review, hear from the community about whether this is how it's going to be in the future moving forward, or whether no, councillors go back to the drawing board and have another look at it. And it may be that community want more categories, different days. We'll wait and see. But I sort of welcome the community discussion around this event. This is where we're sitting at the moment. No doubt we'll hear from the community about whether they like it or not. But if this is successful, I really hope everyone comes along to Kana and make it a truly inclusive community event and celebrate the award winners that we may choose.
Councillor Hart, seconder.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. Kana's already an established festival, or obviously affected by COVID like a lot of other things in more recent times. And I think the decision we took in October, which was removing these awards from Australia Day, because these are Colac Otway Awards, has separated out the issue of the awards, and that's what we're dealing with today. I think it's a good idea to trial these awards at Kana and to have 3 award categories, which does take into account information and views given in the survey, but that we look at, after we've done this, maybe there is a desire for more categories. Maybe we discuss other locations where the event could be held across the Shire, or potentially other dates or events it's linked to. But I think this is a great way forward, and I hope that we'll get some nominations, encourage people, if this motion does get through, to consider people they know in the community who are worthy recipients of these awards. I'm sure there's plenty of people who would be suitable for nomination.
Any other councillor wish to speak? Councillor McCracken.
Thank you. I am satisfied, comfortable to support this. I'm not overly enthusiastic, and I guess I've, having had discussions with others, and I thank my fellow councillors for that, I'm prepared to support this, particularly given that there's going to be a review in a councillor briefing, and given that this has been pared back to 1 year, it makes it a trial run to see if this model might be something that might work into the future. I think one of the advantages of having these awards at a consistent date in time is that they're known, and it can be calendared in and planned around. And Kana is one of those sort of events, but at the same vein, we want to be able to have the option to spread an event like this across the Shire. So that's why I'm prepared to support it being at Kana for 1 year, but I certainly hope that in the future we might be able to spread it to, you know, down at Apollo Bay or one of our small towns as well, because that would help be more inclusive to the community as well, and the different, you know, parts of our Shire, because as much as it might be a day of celebration in Colac when we have Kana Festival, it's not overly inclusive of somewhere like Apollo Bay. So I do hope that, you know, we can certainly consider that in the future. So I guess on that basis, I'm prepared to support this.
Councillor Bell.
Thank you, Mayor. I think this motion it's acceptable. I'm not 100% sure if I'm going to support it yet. I think we had some previous discussions that were probably more favourable to me. I think the A, B and C awards outline quite a generic, really important but generic all-around contribution. And I think there's an opportunity, as was expressed in some of the community surveys, that we could go beyond that and have additional awards that better represent the community as a whole. So I think this falls short a little bit. I also think it falls short a little bit in regard to we have to come back to the drawing board in the not too distant future. I think there was an opportunity to actually have it for multiple years to get a bit of a trend and an understanding of how that works. 1 year is a bit difficult to achieve that. So I think it's not quite adequate. I'm probably reluctant to support it at this stage.
Thank you. Does any other councillor wish to speak? No. Councillors, I'll now call for a vote. All those in favour? All those against? The item's carried 6-1. Okay, now we move to item 10.3, Lrci Phase 3 funding proposed projects. The purpose of this report is to present a draft list of projects for submission to the federal government under the Lrci program Phase 3. Do councillors have any questions? Graham. Councillor Costin.
Thank you, Mayor. I have an alternative motion I'd like to put forward for this one. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Costin. You've shadowed a motion. Do councillors have any questions of officers? No. Councillor Costin, you foreshadowed a motion. Is this the motion that is up on the screen? Oh, yes. Okay.
Yes, it is, and I have a hard copy here also.
Okay. Oh.
Yeah, look, sorry, Mayor. Can I foreshadow if Councillor Costin's motion is not supported, I'd like to move on.
Okay. Thank you. So Councillor Costin is the mover of this motion. Is it to be seconded? Councillor Hart. Is it to be opposed? Councillor McCracken. Okay. Councillor Costin as the mover.
Thank you, Kate. Thank you, Mayor, sorry. This is a unique opportunity to get this amount of money for our projects. It's a substantial amount of money, but we could probably spend 10 times this on projects that we would like to see implemented. It builds on the Phase 2 Local Roads Community Infrastructure Fund. We had 7 projects in that, but there were 7 small projects, and we appear to have had some difficulty in implementing those projects because smaller projects require a lot more time and effort to implement. In this case, also the funding agency has asked us to propose larger projects, and when councillors looked at the projects available, we expressed a clear preference for 3 projects. One was the Colac Memorial Square public toilets. The second was the Apollo Bay Early Years Hub childcare facility, and the third was the Lrci Basin flood retarding basin / wetlands. So from those preferences, the problem with the top three large projects is they don't fit into the available funding envelope. And so I've had to delete one of those projects, and I've chosen to delete the Lrci retarding basin from the preferred list because it still has a number of question marks to me over its proposed use, who benefits, and actually what we're trying to do. It includes money to pump recycled water, but it would appear we have no one to sell the recycled water to at the moment. And the recycled water is only available at a high cost. And to sell that, we'd have to put in a rising main also, so there's further costs that we're unaware of at the moment. There seem to be also questions around the ongoing costs for this retarding basin, and we've had a number of different figures there, so I'm not sure where we're at there. The one I have proposed there, Colac Memorial Square public toilets, I think other councillors will be happy to speak about that, but really the facilities speak for themselves. They do need improvement, and I'm happy to propose those. The third large project, high impact project, is the Apollo Bay Early Years Hub childcare facility. We've been chasing this for some time. I see it as a non-discretionary project. We need this project. We talked about it in November and we were unsure of the costs, and we asked the council officers to go back and refine the design and to refine the cost estimate. And both those things have been done now. We also know that the existing childcare is located in the Great Ocean Road Health Building, and Great Ocean Road Health have asked them to move out by the end of 2023 because they need the space. And they need the space to run allied health services, mental health services, alcohol and drug services, all sorts of services that are needed in the post-COVID period. They're unable to apply for money to provide those services at the moment because the space they need for the services is occupied by childcare. So I see it as non-discretionary. We've also had a study done for the community infrastructure plan done by Track Consultants, which recommends the inclusion of childcare into the early years hub. And that makes it a true early years hub, a one-stop shop where mums and dads can come along with small children, park their car once and get the kids in and out, and not have to make multiple drop-offs. So it becomes a true early years hub. We also learnt recently in the last week that the number of births along the coast has increased substantially. There were 17 births in the last 5 months, and that's more births than there were in the whole 12 months before that. So we can expect those child numbers to move through the system, and we don't have a proper, secure childcare arrangement to accommodate those kids as we go through. So this is also not just about childcare, but it's about key workers, making sure there are key workers available along the coast also, and childcare, as along with affordable housing, childcare is the other critical factor involved there. If we don't have childcare, it keeps young mums in particular, but parents, out of the workforce. And they already live in the area, so they don't need accommodation. So we need to make sure we can provide childcare for them to get into the workforce. The other projects on the list are small ones. There's 2 large ones and a couple of small ones. Coral Rook Master Plan, it'd be great to get that completed. I think the people of Coral Rook would appreciate us implementing what we said we would implement as a master plan. The BAC play space.
Time, Councillor Costin.
Thank you. I drove down to BAC play space before the meeting and had a look, and I think it's got great potential to be enhanced for the township. The last one there, the Skeens Creek Old Coach Road Loop Trail, makes up the numbers. It was on our phase 2 list. It seems to have dropped off, but it's a road safety project, so that's why it's included there.
Okay, time, Councillor. Councillor Hart, you're the seconder.
Yeah, I'll reserve. Thanks, Mayor.
Councillor McCracken, you oppose?
Thank you, Mayor. I think the challenge with this is that we're choosing between good projects and good projects. And I agree with what Councillor Costin said, is that, you know, we could probably double or triple the funding here and still not spend it all. And that's the challenge we've got here, is we've got to try and find a way where we can match priorities against the money that we've got here. So I guess the basis for my opposition is that I don't think that these should be the priorities that we go forward with, and I'm very, very, very interested to hear in Councillor Potter's alternative if he gets the opportunity to move it. One of the challenges I see with this particular motion is the fact that the retarding basin is not on here, and I think it might have been actually Councillor Costin who moved that we've got a housing crisis here in Colac Otway Shire, and here is one way that we can help resolve that matter in a really substantial way, and it's not up there. So for me, that's a really challenging thing to sort of not have there in the very top part of the resolution. It is there as a reserve, but I mean, there are other large projects in there as well that are unlikely to fall off, so it's unlikely we're going to see the retarding basin on there. It's interesting how the Skeens Creek Old Coach Loop Rail Trail connection got on there, because I haven't seen that in any of the briefing papers that we've sort of looked at for at least this phase 3 consideration, so I'm a bit puzzled about that one. So look, I am pleased to see that there are, you know, things that support Rook and, you know, other small towns, but I just think it's a matter of priorities, and everyone around this table is going to have varying degrees of difference about what those priorities are, but respectfully, these are probably not some of the priorities that I share as opposed to some of the others on there, because the housing shortage is a real issue for us, and we need to do something about that. We've got a golden opportunity to do something really substantial to unlock some land, and we're passing that by. I seriously hope we don't. Thank you.
Does any other councillor wish to speak? Councillor Potter.
Thanks, Mayor. Look, I think this is a pretty good list that Councillor Costin has put forward. I do have reservations in relation to the Apollo Bay Early Years Hub at the moment. I think, for me, before we gamble with ratepayers' money, I'd like to see a bit more detail and some more work being done. But there's no doubt that this is a growing issue in Apollo Bay, and sooner or later it'll have to be addressed. What is missing from this list is the Lrci Basin project. I've been championing that project since it was first put on the table about 3 years ago, I think. I think it's a very, very important project for Colac community, and it's missing. So I don't think I can support this.
Councillor White.
Thanks, Mayor. I want to support this motion. Going through the different projects, I particularly want to support the early years childcare. I think I've said it before, and I'll say it again, that childcare is a really important part of any infrastructure. It's not a nice to have anymore. It's non-discretionary. It's something that we should be supporting and should be part of every community. The research is endless about the social and economic benefits of childcare, and the flow-on effects of good childcare in any community are really important. The coastal towns are desperate for people to work. People can't work if they haven't got childcare. So it really is critically important in this situation. We need to support that. I think the opportunity to put the childcare as part of an early years hub is one that we should not pass up. The longer we leave it, the more expensive it's going to become. We have had the report, we asked for the report about what it was going to look like, and I think it has been worked up to a degree that we should be confident that we can fit it into this project list. It is our opportunity, and it is our opportunity to make a difference now. It's a great investment and I really want to support it. The Memorial Square toilets are critically important as well. Civic pride is something that we all think about and talk about, and at the moment those toilets do not reflect civic pride. They are sad, way past their use-by date, and they've been something that a lot of people in our community have been talking about for a very long time, and I would want to support that back on the list as well. We've got a beautiful new playground, everyone's really excited about that, and then we've got these very shabby, nasty, horrible looking toilets that we really do need to do something about, and this is the opportunity to do that. I think including some of the other projects for the smaller towns I really support as well. So through this opportunity and this funding, I think what Councillor Costin has come up with spreads it well. The Lrci Basin obviously is really important to our community. My understanding is that there is other opportunity for funding for that, and those opportunities will be pretty soon. My understanding is also that it won't prevent the beginning of development out there, so it's not as imminently important in my mind as investing in children and families in Apollo Bay. So I'd like to support Councillor Costin's motion.
Thank you. Does any other councillor wish to speak? Councillor Bell.
Thank you, Mayor. I won't be supporting this motion. I'd just like to echo some of the thoughts from the previous councillors that have already spoken. The projects generally are all very worthy projects and ought to be given full consideration as they are being right now. But as Councillor McCracken alluded to, we have to come up with a list eventually, and I'm just a bit concerned about a couple of the projects in particular. I agree with Councillor Costin that there is a problem down on the coast in regards to an early years hub, but also agree with Councillor Potter and that we probably need a little bit more information around that before we can sort of, with great certainty, go to that next level. I think the main reason why I'm not going to support this one is because of the retarding basin. I think it's a really critical omission. I think we know that it performs a really important cog for the development of our shire in a particular area where we have acknowledged that there is a housing crisis. To enable that retarding basin to be constructed, we then enable that process to begin and alleviate the problems of housing in the shire. It's true, and as Councillor White pointed out, we probably could commence the project without the retarding basin, but I think it's pretty obvious, at least from what I can tell, that it would certainly facilitate it in a far more efficient manner. So to that end, I won't be supporting Councillor Costin's motion, but just wanted to reiterate that they're all very important projects, and just because I'm not supporting it on this occasion doesn't mean I'm not going to support other projects in the future either.
Councillor Hart.
Thanks, Mayor. I support this resolution. I'm going to touch on the Rook master plan. I think it'd be great to see that project completed, and it's been one they've been working on in that community for many years. But my prime reason for supporting this resolution is the Apollo Bay Early Years Hub, which is much needed. As was pointed out by another councillor, people can't get childcare, then they can't work, and there's a shortage of workers down there. And to those councillors who say, oh, we need more information, this is what we heard a year ago. This is what we heard a year ago. What attempt did these councillors do in the last 12 months to elicit this extra information that they need? No, as far as I'm aware, absolutely none. It really starts to sound like an excuse when we're on this merry-go-round. People say, oh, we might support this Apollo Bay Early Years Hub. This will be the second opportunity to do that. You support it with your vote to get funding, and this will be the second year that the council, if this resolution doesn't get up, councillors vote it down. So what request did they put into council management for more information in the last 12 months? What attempt did council management make to elicit and respond to these queries? I think when you hear the same sort of tired arguments 12 months later, you start to see that the real issue is that this council does not support childcare in Apollo Bay. That's what's going on. There's been a year to address these concerns.
Point of order, Mayor.
Councillor Potter.
Sorry, Mayor, in my address I said quite clearly that I did support childcare at Apollo Bay.
Yeah.
The way you support projects ultimately, Mayor, is by your actions, not by your words, and the actions here are to vote in favour of this resolution. At the end of the day, you either vote in favour of this project or you don't, and there's the opportunity to vote in favour of it right now. So it doesn't matter what you say, it's what you do when it comes to the vote. So I'll be supporting this resolution because I support childcare in Apollo Bay. I recognise the need for childcare early years hub in Apollo Bay, and Apollo Bay has my support in words, and Apollo Bay will have my support in a vote in a moment.
Okay, councillors. Councillor Costin, you have a right of reply.
Thank you, Mayor. It seems the only issue with this alternative motion I've put up is the exclusion of the Lrci Road flood retarding basin. It's interesting, I find, because I'm still confused about that project. I don't think it's quite clear what it's about, how much it will cost, whether it will unlock land, whether it will really unlock land at this time. We know the next item on the agenda, which is the Bakerland Development Plan, we know that 80% of that land can be developed without the retarding basin. The other 20% can probably be developed without the retarding basin also, but it'll just be subject to more frequent flooding. So it's not impacting on what looks like our major land development at the moment. 80% can be developed without that retarding basin. We've heard that. The Lrci retarding basin is also one of 3 regional priorities, 3 regional integrated water resource management priorities. So it's high on the agenda as a regional project. And we have applied for regional funding for that at the moment, for the regional infrastructure funding. That's still being considered. We didn't have the answer at the moment, but because it's one of 3 priority projects, I think it's likely to have a good chance. And if you can compare that to the childcare centre in Apollo Bay, it doesn't have any other option. It doesn't have any other alternative funding. And I'm particularly disappointed to hear councillors say, oh, I think we need more information about the childcare in Apollo Bay.
Time, councillor.
It's a poor strategy. If you needed more information, you should have asked for more information. You didn't raise this during the briefings. That was the time to ask for more information. So I'm disappointed to hear that said now.
Councillors, I will now call for a vote. All those in favour? All those against? The item's lost 3-4.
Division.
Division has been called. All those in favour? Councillor Costin, Councillor White, Councillor Hart. All those against? Councillor Potter, Councillor McCracken, Councillor Bell, Councillor Hanson. Councillor Potter, you flagged a motion.
I have, Mayor. I think we have some words. I believe it might be headed option 5. Is it?
Oh, yeah, there it is up there. Is that it?
Yes, that's it. Hang on a minute.
Can you move that down slightly? I just want to see what's under point 2. That's it. Hang on, stop. Oh. Okay. You can move it back up if you want.
Yeah, if we move it back up, I'm happy to move that.
Okay, is there a seconder? Councillor McCracken, is it to be opposed? Oh, you've got questions? Yes.
Yeah, so could I just get clarification about the Western Oval drainage project? I understood that council had spent money on that project some time ago. Could we get an explanation as to why further works are required at the Western Oval, please?
Through the Mayor, thank you for the question, Councillor Hart. Following the completion of the works and the defect liability period, after a period of heavy rain, some drainage issues started to occur on the surface of the oval. So it was indicating that it was holding water. So following that observation, further investigations were undertaken to try and identify the cause. We've engaged consultants and the original designer to assist us with that investigation. There is a fault with the works that were carried out that need to be rectified, and the cost of that rectification is summarised in that figure there.
Councillor Hart.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. I'm trying to understand, surely if you do works on the surface of an oval, you address drainage at that time. How is it that I'm trying to understand why you're addressing drainage after you've done the surface works. It doesn't quite sound like a sensible way to do a project.
So to clarify, the scope of works didn't just involve works to the surface of the oval. It was actually involved installing drainage lines below the surface and other material, and then turf on top of that. So it actually wasn't just to the surface itself.
Councillor Hart.
So from what I understand, and correct me if I'm wrong, you've engaged someone to do some drainage and surface works, and now we're looking at government funding to do drainage. Was there I think you said there was something wrong with the drainage? Surely that would be a matter for a discussion with whoever did the works. Is there any sort of discussion on that, or are we just looking at an easy way is to just get this government funding?
Through the Mayor, there is discussion with both the designer and the people who constructed the works around how this fault originated. But regardless of that and whether any money can be recouped, we need to rectify the damage up front because there's a seasonal constraint. We'd like that work to be undertaken before the winter season so that the surface is playable.
You can have another question. I'll just caution that if some questions become a bit too complicated or confidential, we might have to go into a closed session. I'm just cautioning you on the questions, that's all. Councillor Hart.
Thanks, Mayor. I'll try not to walk. I'll walk to the edge of the cliff but not over it. Has anyone checked whether getting rectification works for a project where there's some discussion as to who should be fixing it comes under the eligibility for this particular fund, which I would have thought, I'm just thinking that the way politicians seem to operate, I can't see them cutting a ribbon on rectification works. So if we check the eligibility, and if council has any other rights that may be of a contractual nature, is it jeopardised by council under getting funding elsewhere?
Through the Mayor, I can answer the first part of the question, which is that we have checked whether this project would be eligible, and under the guidelines for Phase 3 it would be. Do not know the answer to the second part of the question, which is whether it would place any constraint on us for other funding opportunities.
Councillor Potter?
Thanks, Mayor. I think you said it, but just to be clear, if the works in Western Oval aren't undertaken, will sport be able to play on the surface?
Through the Mayor, we've had an agronomist as part of the consultant advice we've received on this matter, and their advice to us was that it would not be playable in its current condition, or the condition of it would worsen if it was to be played on. However, some training is occurring on some areas of the surface.
Councillor Potter?
Thanks, Mayor. Can someone indicate how many sporting teams or participants that will affect that won't be able to play on that surface? I think there's a number of women's AFL teams in particular that use that facility.
Through you, Mayor, just to clarify that cricket can be played on the facility. We're referring to winter sport being AFL. There's 4 male teams of around about 20 odd participants each, and then I think it's either 2 or 3 female teams. I'm not sure what they had this season, which is about the same number again.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Costin?
Thank you, Mayor. In relation to the Forest Street works, are we proposing just to do that $292,000 worth of work? Or are we proposing to do the whole project funded by Roads to Recovery? And if we're proposing to do the whole work, why don't we fund it all from Roads to Recovery and use some of the local roads community infrastructure money for other projects?
Through the Mayor, the Forest Street road reconstruction that's proposed for Lrci Round 3 is considered to be one of our highest priorities for rectification. What we're proposing is that the $292,400 would be a contribution to the $1.2 million total cost of the project, so it would be supplemented by the Roads to Recovery funding that Council receives. If we were to fully fund Forest through the Roads to Recovery, so the $1.2 million full project cost, it would mean the deferral of other high priority projects, road reconstruction projects that are also in poor condition.
Councillor Costin?
But it's correct that all the roads due for renewal or upgrade on our asset management plan are funded in our forward financial plan. They don't need grants. Is that correct?
Our asset management plan for transportation does account for or allow for a contribution annually towards road reconstruction, and makes the assumption we will receive the Roads to Recovery funding contribution as well. And Forest Street is one of the roads that is recognised as one of many roads we will need to rectify over the coming years. So yes, it's included or allowed for in that sense.
Okay, councillors, Councillor Potter, you're the mover. Councillor McCracken, seconder. Is it to be opposed? Councillor Hart. Have you got a question? Oh, well, Councillor Hart jumped in first and opposed, but Councillor Potter as the mover.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. We have some government funding that we have to allocate to selected projects, and it's been a hard and tough process, as we've heard. What I'm proposing, if I first touch on some smaller projects, some money for the Rook master plan implementation. They do a good job out in the community. That doesn't finish this particular project, but goes halfway there. So a bit more money spent on in the Rook area on a great project. BA Play Space renewal. again, they don't ask for a lot out of BAC, but they're a growing community. They need their play space updated, and I was pleased to speak to Councillor Costin, who took the time to go out and have a look for himself and endorse that area and that needed renewal. Bit of money for Forest Street, Colac road reconstruction, which is badly needed. And we've heard from officers about if the Western Oval doesn't get fixed, we can't use it, and that puts a lot of people out of sport. And we've spent a lot of money on that facility so far. It's growing in use. It's the pinnacle of female AFL play space in this area, in this region. So it'd be a pity to take that opportunity for all those people to be playing sport next winter. And of course, there's the Lrci Road Wetlands project. Project I got very excited about 3 years ago when it was first brought to councils, the previous council. It's an enormously significant project. It's a priority project, G21. The Barwon Regional Partnership Group, part of the Barwon Integrated Water Management Strategy, and to walk away from it when we have opportunity to deliver it, I think would be a shame for this community. Not only will it help deliver residential development, which is part of our housing crisis, but it will help put water into Lake Colac, and water in Lake Colac is of enormous concern to people in this in the Colac community, and there's been various strategies looked at as to how to get water into Lake Colac and keep it there, and better drainage. If we can eliminate the golf club or racing club having to pump water out of Deans Creek as they are now, and use this wetlands drainage basin to put cleaner water back into Deans Creek and therefore into Lake Colac, I think that's an outstanding outcome. If we do get money from a different funding stream, or if we go to table 2, we'll see some options that this motion authorise the Chief Executive Officer to put into the list. And of course, number 1 on that list is the Apollo Bay Childcare Centre redevelopment. So it is still possible to get funding for that. And if there is funding from RDV that might come forward to Lrci Road, well, I hope the Apollo Bay Childcare Centre development is a recipient of getting put into the list, and I can't believe that this is going to be opposed, because there still remains a chance that childcare can be delivered in Apollo Bay, and you either really support that outcome or you don't. So, councillors, I think this is a worthy motion containing projects that should be funded from this money that is forthcoming from the government, and I urge you all to support it.
Thank you. Councillor McCracken is the seconder. Reserve. Councillor Hart, you opposed?
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. Very confusing arguments from councillors on this resolution. The Apollo Bay Childcare, we couldn't approve it before as a definite funding because we didn't have enough information, but it can be on some reserve list, on the never. So it's a very confused argument from some councillors. We spent a lot of money on that facility so far, was the comment made about Western Oval. So if I get this right, we paid someone to do drainage and surface works on Western Oval, and now we're asking the federal government to bail us out with more work on the drainage. Obviously, it didn't work. That's the message we're getting. This is the reason why I won't support this resolution. I do think the Lrci Basin has some merit, and given that there was a vote against the other motion, I would have been prepared to support most of the things on this list, but I can't when there is such lack of clarity over why we're paying a second time to do drainage works on Western Oval and why we're seeking the government, the federal government, to bail us out on that project. What an appropriate description. And that is primarily the reason why I won't be supporting this resolution. There is such a lack of information about this and what this may do when you have a contract to do works that there's now a question mark over. But the other reason that made me a bit more comfortable on opposing this resolution is look at what's been shortchanged to help fund the Western Oval drainage. We're going to shortchange Rook, sort of so they can half do a project so it won't be finished. Forest Street, which I accept was an important project, it wasn't on the last list, but given that we're not doing Apollo Bay childcare, we're going to shortchange the Forest Street Colac project. And the reason we're shortchanging these projects is because of this issue of rectification works in Western Oval. Every councillor should be asking management, what is it that we are seeking federal government funding for a project that has already been done? I'm just staggered that would be included on the list. And yes, I support Apollo Bay, but I support Apollo Bay being funded, not on some never reservation list. When you look at the cost of the Apollo Bay as a reserve project, the only way that could go ahead is if the Irrawillipy wetlands didn't go ahead, and we've been told how important that is. So when you've got that level of funding, you're just listing that just for the paperwork. Unfortunately, your opportunity to do that was voted down a minute ago. But I think the community should be asking what's going on with council in this Western Oval drainage that they're seeking federal government funding to do a project that's already been done.
Does any other councillor wish to speak? Councillor Costin.
Thank you, Mayor. I think this is a fairly confused motion. I think it's a lost opportunity. We're here as councillors, we're supposed to be making evidence-based decisions. We're trying to prioritise projects, and we should make that prioritisation, set those priorities based on the evidence. It seems that Councillor Potter is fairly confused about the Irrawillipy Road Basin. It's not going to put more water into Lake Colac. There's only a finite amount of water. It will get there anyway. We're holding it back. It's not going to put more water in Lake Colac. I can guarantee that. And to say it will provide water for the Colac Turf Club and the Colac Golf Club, I don't know when the last time was that anyone has spoken to them, but we've seen recently in the Colac Herald that the Turf Club are comfortable with where they're at with water at the moment. The Golf Club say they're drought proof. They don't need the water. And anyway, the water would be produced at twice the price of Bowen Water's potable water. I mean, so who's going to buy it? Who's going to use it? So the evidence just doesn't seem to be there, apart from unlocking the land. We have quite a number of blocks that can be unlocked at the moment, proposed, and we're considering them in the next item on the agenda, that don't need the retarding basin. It could be delayed. And what we're doing by funding this basin through this grant is throwing away an opportunity to have the developers contribute to the construction of the basin through developer charges, because we can't charge retrospectively. So we're throwing away that opportunity. All we're really doing is subsidising the profits of developers in the future. I also agree with the Western Oval one. I think it's just a waste to use this money to fix up a problem that shouldn't have been there in the first place. Thank you.
Does any other councillor wish to speak? Councillor White.
I too have concerns because I felt so strongly about the other recommendation, but I also have concerns about using federal grant money such as this for rectification works. I agree it needs to be done and has to be done and has to be funded somehow, but I think using grants such as this, I've got concerns about that. The wetlands, as we've all recognise, all these projects are really good projects and really important, but there are other sources of funding that look likely for this project. And I guess what we're hoping is that actually does happen, and then we will see some funding put towards the childcare. But as it stands, I can't support it.
Does any other councillor wish to speak? Councillor McCracken, you reserved.
Thanks, Mayor. Look, I'm happy to support this, although I do admit there are some concerns over the Western Oval drainage. And to be fair, this is probably not the first time, Councillor Hart, you're probably looking at me with a bit of, oh, yep, here it goes again sort of thing. There have been concerns over projects. I guess the reason why I'm prepared to support this is that the Oval is going to be unusable without this funding. And I understand that there are efforts to sort of, I can't say too much, but to rectify the situation so that it's as cost neutral as possible, we'll say it that way. The Irrawillippi Road wetlands and the retarding basin there is important. We've already heard that there's a housing crisis that's been declared, and this will assist in helping unlock a lot of that land in a part of Colac that is certainly growing in ilmenite, that's for sure. So yes, certainly on that basis I'm prepared to support that. Some of the things that have been split up, such as the Colac master plan, the picnic area, I think that's an attempt to sort of spread things out a bit, along with the Beac play space as well, which are all very worthy projects. But to talk about some of the projects that, as you have said, have fallen off this list, or should I say into the reserve category, I think we've got to look at the opportunities ahead and be a bit open-minded. We have to remember that we've got 2 elections coming up in the next 12 months. There's a federal election which is due, well, sometime before the end of May, and a state election at the end of the year. And I think here's a golden opportunity to put these things right high up on the priority project list. And we should be doing everything we can to sort of promote that and find another funding stream to do this. So for those who are opposing this, don't lose hope, but try and think about the opportunities and use networks to promote this. When you're talking to politicians and political candidates, these are the things that you should be putting front and centre of their minds so that we can sort of make as many possible projects across our community happen as they can. So I say, don't just say, oh, well, it's all over, Red Rover sort of thing. Let's try and really make sure that we do have a positive outcome here for everyone and maximise the value that we can get.
Can I move an amendment, Mayor?
Yes, you can move an amendment.
Move an amendment that the Western Oval drainage be removed from the list, that the Colac master plan goes up to the full amount, which I think was $260,000, and that the leftover balance goes into towards Forest Street, which will bring the amount of Forest Street can be. So you take $350 away from Western Oval. Colac goes up to $260, which is an extra $140, and you reinstate the other $210, I think it is, to bring Forest Street, which I'm closer to what it needed to be.
I think that's quite contrary to the original motion. You can certainly, if this gets defeated, you could move an alternate, but it actually significantly changes the original motion. So, Councillor Potter, you have a right of reply.
Thanks, Mayor, and you're right, but it was a good try. When I did speak about the money spent on Western Oval, but I was should have been a bit clearer, and I should have referred to the lighting and the netball courts that we've upgraded there. I wasn't necessarily referring to anything else. Look, you've heard me talk about the wetlands. Councillor Costins thinks I'm confused about how drainage works and all the rest of it. I'm not confused about the fact that the racing club hold a licence to pump water out of Deans Creek. And if they don't have to do that, well, that's more water in Deans Creek and that's more water in Lake Colac. And likewise with those boggy paddocks, the water sits on the boggy paddocks. It doesn't run off, or doesn't run off effectively or efficiently. So trust me, Councillor Costin, this will put more water in Lake Colac. If I was as passionate about the Apollo Bay Childcare Centre development as I was led to believe that some councillors were, I'd be supporting this and hoping that some money fell out of the sky for Irrawullaby Road wetlands, because that delivers the Apollo Bay Childcare Centre development. I'd be showing my support to the CEO that if one falls off, please put the Apollo Bay Childcare Centre in and fund it. But I'm not hearing that from councillors. I'm not hearing that from councillors who purport to support the childcare centre. Here is a slim chance that this can be delivered. You have to be in it to win it. And for councillors who want it but now vote against it, I'm very surprised.
Yeah, councillors, I'll now call for a vote. All those in favour? All those against? The item's carried 4-3. Yeah, councillors, we might just have a quick break and come back at 22, so that gives you about 8 minutes. 20 to 6. Okay, we might get started again. Okay, okay. Now we move to item 10.4, the Irrawulipi Road Planning Scheme Amendment, C120 Colac Bakerland Development Plan. The purpose of this report is to obtain a council resolution to seek authorisation from the Minister for Planning to exhibit the Irrawulipi Road Planning Scheme Amendment, C120 Colac. Okay, do councillors have any questions? Councillor Potter.
Thanks, Mayor. What happens if some of the landowners, apart from Bakerland, object or don't want to sign up, so to speak, to this?
Through you, Mayor, certainly anyone who objects to the amendment can make a submission, and we can then treat that submission, assess that submission and come back to council through the process of the amendment. But before going on exhibition early next year, we will be engaging with landowners in this precinct to see who is interested in the rezoning and who has concerns about it, and to work that through before we actually exhibit the amendment.
Councillor Hart.
Thanks, Mayor. I think that Mr McNeil may have got there almost. My questions, I just wanted to be clear whether the public, if you're a neighbouring landholder, you have nothing to do with this proposal, will you have an opportunity to comment, and how will you be involved in the process potentially?
Yeah, through you, Mayor. I just referenced engaging with landowners early in the new year. That will be primarily with the people who own land within the area that's intended to be rezoned. But when we exhibit the amendment, we'll be exhibiting it to the broader community as well as the directly impacted landowners. Yeah.
Councillor Costin.
Thank you, Mayor. In the executive summary of the report, it sets out, it says officers will work with the proponent to set out reasonable development contributions for infrastructure in the growth area. What sort of infrastructure will be paid for by the developer?
Through you, Mayor, there's a range of different infrastructure items that we're currently looking at. There's contributions that might be made towards social and community infrastructure, so things like recreational upgrades in Colac that might arise from the increased demand of a new community on this land, traffic management upgrades surrounding the site. So we're still working with the proponent around what some of those upgrades might be. The intention with this resolution is that there be a memorandum of understanding entered into with the proponent where there's a commitment to pay contributions, and then we'll spend the early part of next year then determining what those are. And the intention is that before an amendment's adopted, that we would have a Section 173 agreement entered into specifying what those contributions are and how much would be payable. But certainly drainage improvements would be a part of that contribution scheme too.
Councillor Potter.
Thanks, Mayor. Officers have put up this recommendation, and I know you can't foresee what Minister will do, but I'm assuming you have a high degree of confidence that if councillors approve this tonight, that it'll pass through the Minister, okay?
Yeah, through you, Mayor, we certainly do have a fair degree of confidence. This land's been highlighted in the Colac 2050 growth plan as a growth area for council. There is a strong recognition in government about the lack of residential land available in Colac, and we believe that we've done enough technical work through the process to support a rezoning being authorised by the Minister.
Are there any further questions? Okay. Councillors, the officers have provided a recommendation with the report for our consideration. Does any councillor wish to move a motion in relation to this matter? Councillor Hart. You'll move it. Councillor Potter, the seconder. Is it to be opposed? Okay, Councillor Hart is the mover.
Thanks, Mayor. This is a very important step that council will be taking today if this resolution is adopted, and it's to seek an amendment, a planning amendment, so that the particular land on page 27 can be rezoned and ultimately developed for housing. And obviously that's a priority of this current council. And my understanding of this process is that this amendment, once it's prepared, and we heard some clarification just now, will go out for public comment. The public will be able to raise any concerns as part of that process, and if council can't accommodate those concerns or respond to them, there will eventually be an independent panel. While I'm very supportive of this step to call for this amendment, I think we just have to be careful to realise that as councillors we will have a role with considering any submissions that may come in from the public, and that we will have a role in giving direction if an independent panel is required to council. So I think this is a very important next step. Housing's obviously a need in Colac. There's a shortage of land, and I hope that the Minister does agree that the amendment can be exhibited, but I just temper that with the knowledge that we may have to give consideration to public submissions and see how the process runs through. But this is certainly a great step, and I commend the officers for bringing this forward.
Councillor Potter.
Thanks, Mayor. Yeah, I'd like to thank the officers, as Councillor Hart did. I think this is a change in thinking from the officers in response to the pressure from councils and the community to get some housing developments done as soon as possible. And I congratulate them for putting this in front of us and the way you've gone about this. I know there's a lot of work to do, and there's a few T's to cross and I's to dot, but I was very pleased to see this, so thank you for doing this. I hope this is supported, indications are that it will be. I note that there are discussions with Bakerland in relation to possibility of some social housing outcomes. I hope they progress. We haven't, as council, set a standard on that or set any sort of targets or aspirations, and happy to be part of a working group if that's the way we go in relation to setting those sorts of parameters. But this is a development by local people who are involved in the community actively, who understand the need in Colac. Their aim, of course, is of a commercial nature, but I'm sure with some good discussions we might even get a bit more of a social housing outcome than what council managed to achieve earlier on. So thank you to officers for your work, and continue at it.
Would any other councillor like to speak? No. Okay, councillors, I'll now call for a vote. All those in favour? The item's carried 7-0. Okay, now we move to item 10.5, Development Plan Overlay Jennings Street, Colac. The purpose of this report is to consider a development plan for sites in Jennings Street, Colac, following notification to affected landowners. Do councillors have any questions of officers? Councillor Hart.
Thanks, Mayor. My question relates to page 50 of the agenda, where it has a sort of layout plan. I just wonder about the, if you look at the left of the page, about the thoughts behind those particular designs of streets, and whether it was necessary to have those two independent court bowls, if you like. Perhaps council's considered this and has some comments about the reasoning for how this came up.
Thank you for the question, and through the Mayor. The key with this particular diagram or sketch for the development plan is that all of these lots need to be developed independently, primarily because the middle lot has been so extensively developed that it's not possible to get a connection through. Now, I have had discussions with the landowners on the western side with that. Looks like a court bowl, but it's actually a very, very narrow lane, and the intention there is to show it will be a concrete strip with a turnaround at the end, not a fully constructed road. We actually do have a planning permit application lodged with us for the one immediately to the east of that, which... East? That one. The one that's got the house at the front on the western side, and it actually matches their layout in terms of what they're proposing to do with the concrete strip. That's a development for 6 lots. So effectively, and further with the discussion with the other landowner that I referenced before, they're thinking of doing some larger lots anyway, which may even be battle axe blocks and not necessarily a road. So I've added a notation to the plan to reflect that desire.
Are there any other questions? Okay, councillors, the officers have provided a recommendation with the report for our consideration. Does any councillor wish to move a motion in relation to this matter? Councillor McCracken, do you wish? Okay, move the recommendation. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Potter, is it to be opposed? No. Councillor McCracken is the mover. No. Councillor Potter?
Yeah, just quickly, thanks, Mayor. Again, I want to congratulate the officers on this piece of work. This does not look very attractive when you look at the drawings and the map, but what officers have been able to do is work with local people who are keen to do a subdivision, and if this is passed, really pull it off. So another piece of good work. Yeah, there's not a million blocks here, but landowners are being assisted by officers to do what they want, and it's a good thing for Colac and another piece of good work.
Does any other councillor wish to speak? Councillor Hart.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. I'll be supporting this particular resolution. I'd like to thank the submitters, the people who made a submission on this particular proposal. I note that this is the end of the process in the sense that we're adopting this particular development plan. So that's a great outcome, and I wish all the landholders the best in terms of their plans for their properties. I just make the point today, Mayor, we need to not lose the significance of what we've done so far today. We've recognised as a council the importance of more residential land in Colac. We've taken 3 separate decisions in the last couple of hours. Bruce Street land sale with a view to seeing more residential land in Colac. Planning amendment, the Lrci Road one, just the last item, to begin a process of rezoning, ultimately to see more residential land in Colac subject to the public exhibition and that process. In this development plan overlay, to see more residential land in this particular project. So that's three different items that we've considered today, and each of them are independent of each other, and I think that's a great outcome, that if one takes a little bit longer to get online than another, that you have 3 separate items just in one meeting that we're dealing with today. I certainly thank the officers, and particularly the town planners who have allowed us to be in this position today, where we've passed 3, if this gets through, 3 items that certainly are a good step forward on residential land for Colac.
Thank you. Does any other councillor wish to speak? No. Councillors, I'll now call for a vote. All those in favour? The item's carried 7-0. Okay, I wish to advise at the meeting that the Chief Executive Officer has withdrawn item 10.6 from the agenda for further review. That was the draft Birregurra Drainage and Flood Study and Planning Scheme Amendment, C116 COLA, consideration of submissions. Okay, so now we move to item 10.7, the Colac Otway Shire Annual Report 2020-21. The purpose of this report is for Council to note it has considered the 2020-21 annual report as submitted to the Minister for Local Government. Do councillors have any questions? Councillor Hart.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. My question relates to the surplus, the reported surplus being a lot better than was originally anticipated, and I believe that has something to do with the landfill reserve. Could we get an explanation from that? Particularly, does that mean that council has more money available for projects, or what was the significance of a higher surplus as it relates to the landfill reserve?
Thank you for the question, Councillor. The landfill reserve is established to meet the requirements of council fulfilling its obligations with regard to the rehabilitation of landfills, and there was an assessment done to determine our level of rehabilitation required. It was established by a recognised professional organisation who does those assessments that our estimate was, we'd overestimated the amount that was required. It doesn't provide extra cash for council as a result. It's simply an adjustment to that reserve.
Are there any other questions? No? Okay. Councillors, the officers have provided a recommendation with the report for our consideration. Does any councillor wish to move a motion in relation to this matter? Councillor White, you wish to move the recommendation? Is it to be seconded? Councillor Hart. Is it to be opposed? Okay, Councillor White is the mover.
Thanks, Mayor. Just briefly to say, I want to congratulate the people who have been involved in putting the report together. It's a really comprehensive report. It has a really good look about it. They're really hard things to put together, and I understand the work that goes and what's involved. I think looking at it also gives a really good picture of Colac and District and the Shire. And I would really encourage the community, although it's sometimes daunting to pick up a report like this and get a handle on it, but to have a look at it and to give some time to understanding the complexity of council and what council does. It gives a good overview of council business and operations, and I'd also particularly encourage the community to have a look at the vision, the mission and the strategic directions to really get an understanding of what council's all about. And again, to congratulate the people involved. It's a good looking document, and I hope it doesn't just get filed away. I hope people do look at it and use it to get an understanding of council and council business. Thanks.
Councillor Hart.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I echo Councillor White's comments in terms of hoping the community will have a chance to have a look at this document. Draw attention to page 293 with the greenhouse emissions from council's operations, which has been monitored now right back to 2010-11, and it's in a table. You can see further reductions in buildings and street lighting. The fleet's a bit sticky, and because we've been buying energy from renewable energy since 1st of July 2020, even though there's various figures there, it has naught with an asterisk, which indicates that the emissions were effectively offset by buying renewable energy. One significant one is gas. That's largely from the heated pool, and I understand that we've funded a project to have that converted to heat pump. And of course, council has also made a decision to offset emissions. So two things have happened, or three things really. Reduction in emissions, purchase of renewable energy, and the offset against the remaining emissions. I guess the fleet should be a focus in future years. I'm not going to go on about two-way radios too much, but I will point out on page 292 of the agenda, there is some sort of explanation as to what occurred in relation to the two-way radios. So I'm glad that that is reported in the annual report. And further on in the annual report, you can find councillors' attendances at meetings, which is very good to perfect. As you'll see, and I can't quite find the page, it also has all details of councillors' allowances, councillors' travel claims, quite a lot of disclosures in relation to councillors. So they're just a couple of points I'd mention, but there's a lot more in the annual report than that. Thanks, Mayor.
Does any other councillor wish to who got in first? Councillor Costin.
Thank you, Mayor. I too would like to thank the staff for the preparation of this report. It's more than just a glossy document. When you read the content, there's very good content in the report. It covers the period of when we were coming to grips with the new COVID normal, and I think our officers and our performance as an organisation was very, very good during that period. It also covers the period of the election of 3 new councillors, and I still feel humbled and awed by that, by the responsibility entrusted upon me by the community. We declared a key and essential workers housing crisis, which I think focused our organisation on the need to work harder on this issue, and thank you to fellow councillors for supporting that. Councillor Hart has mentioned our carbon reduction program. We're on the way to achieving carbon neutrality. We made some good decisions in relation to blue water. But probably most importantly over that period was the work we did on with our community and with our staff to develop our community vision and our 21-25 council plan. Well done to the staff and to the organisation. Thank you.
Councillor Potter.
Thanks, Mayor, and just echo what my fellow councillors mentioned about this is a good report and encourage people to read it. Can I draw attention though to page 303, where it highlights our provision of traineeships and our support for our younger people and encouraging them to join the organisation. I think that's fantastic work, and I know we have one trainee who's now in their 3rd year as an apprentice gardener, and a trainee commenced in the role of Office of Administrator, Economy and Business, and I think it's fantastic that we offer those opportunities to our young people. Let's keep them in Colac, and as local people, I'm sure they will dedicate themselves to their tasks. And on the same page, it talks about equal employment opportunities and some of the courses that our staff have undertaken, and great to see 18 women attending a women's leadership development program, and staff have undertaken mental health, first aid, fraud and corruption prevention, bullying and harassment awareness, and a whole host of other important courses to ensure the good functioning of this organisation and the health and wellbeing of our staff.
Okay, does any other councillor wish to speak? Right, councillors, I'll now call for a vote. All those in favour? The item's carried 7-0. Okay. Now we move to item 10.8, the Domestic Animal Management Plan 2021-25. The purpose of this report is to present the Domestic Animal Management Plan 2021-25 to Council for endorsement. Do councillors have any questions? Councillor Costin. Councillor Costin has foreshadowed a motion. Do councillors have any questions? No, Councillor Costin, you wish to foreshadow a motion that is up on the screen. Is there a seconder for that motion? Councillor Potter. Okay, Councillor Costin as the mover.
Thank you, Mayor. This is a plan we are required to prepare under the Domestic Animals Act 1994. We have to do it every 4 years. In our shire, we have a registration program. There were some 4,380 dogs registered and around 1,476 cats. And it's great that we're registering cats and we're keeping tabs on what's happening with cats, not just dogs. The high number of visitors to our shire also means there's probably a lot more dogs than are registered, and we need to make sure that these don't cause a nuisance to our residents, ratepayers and visitors, especially on our foreshores, beaches and other areas, other pieces of land that we as the shire don't manage, because the community doesn't see the boundaries between what we manage and what's managed by someone else. And I can tell you dogs don't see any boundaries there either. So we need to look beyond that. And that's why I proposed this small alternative to the motion. But first, just to run through the services we provide as well as registration, we do community awareness, complaints responses, and that includes immediate response to after hours to dog attacks. We do regular street patrols, and we have an empowerment arrangement for lost animals. The plan covers the qualifications and the skills we need from our staff, which is great to see. It's not just a role that someone can walk into unqualified. The low number of submissions indicates that there's a reasonable level of satisfaction with the draft plan. But I've picked up on one of the submissions which talks, again, raised the issue of dogs roaming on foreshores and beaches. While we're not the land manager there, we do need, I think on behalf of the community, we do need to take some role in regulating nuisance dogs across these boundaries. Surf Coast spent a long time, 8 years I think someone said, to reach an arrangement with the former Great Ocean Road Coast Committee to agree on shared responsibilities, and they've jointly prepared a very nice map which shows where you can take your dogs, where they need to be on leash and where they can run off leash on foreshores and beaches as well as around town. I'd like to follow what Surf Coast have done. They've paved the way, so it shouldn't take us 8 years. It should take us a lot less than that. But we need also to be having it would be great to have a consistent approach all along the Great Ocean Road. So there's not one set of rules through Surf Coast and another set of rules as you get to Colac Otway Shire. Particularly so given now that both areas of beaches and foreshores are now managed by the Great Ocean Road Coast and Parks Authority. So I've proposed this amendment for us to collaborate with the GORCAPA, Great Ocean Road Coast and Parks Authority, with a view to preparing an integrated plan like Surf Coast for the management of domestic animals, and I'm primarily referring to dogs here, across our coastal towns, foreshores, boundaries, harbours, beaches, and I also mean across municipal boundaries. But I haven't put that in there, but that's not a problem. When should we do this by? hopefully by the end of the year, before the next summer period, would be ideal. It might be an aspirational goal, but we've got to set ourselves a target to work towards. And we undertake an evaluation of whether we've achieved that target around that time also. And this work would go out for community consultation before it comes back to council for adoption also. So that's the motion I'd like to propose. Thank you.
Councillor Potter.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. Yeah, very happy to support this with the inclusion proposed by Councillor Costin about collaborating with the Great Ocean Road Coast and Parks Authority. That in itself might be aspirational, but I hope it comes off because there is a need for that type of integrated plan in my view, and congratulate Councillor Costin for including this, and I hope we get some sort of agreement and strategy with them. And I'd just like to congratulate Graham Murphy and his staff for this strategy and plan. I think it's been very well put together, and this inclusion just reinforces it and enhances it.
Thank you. Does any other councillor wish to speak? No. Councillors, I'll now call for a vote. All those in favour? The item's carried 7-0. Okay. I'll note that the next item, 10.9, has been withdrawn from the agenda, pending some further information. So now we'll move to item 10.10, contract 2208, Birregurra Sports Ground lighting upgrade. Do councillors have any questions? Oh, where am I? I'll just say the purpose of this report is to approve and award contract 2208, Birregurra Sports Ground lighting upgrade. Do councillors have any questions? Councillor Hart.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. My question relates to, in a way, 10.9 and 10.10 together. 10.9 proposed to award lighting for, I think it was 4 different grounds, and this one's been done separately. Why is this particular item being done as a separate contract?
Through the Mayor, thanks for the question. The reason is that the funding stream for this particular work at Birregurra Sports Ground was different to the funding stream for the other 4 locations.
Councillor Hart.
Thanks, Mayor. The other question relates to, in a way, to the deferral of the previous item. There's obviously something more that has to come from that. Are we satisfied that this particular item, which is 10.10, could be approved in accordance with all the various policies that Council has as a standalone item? Because I note that, if I'm right, that the same contractor is involved in this one as the earlier one. So I'm looking for assurance, or not, that we could deal with this item, that this one has all necessary, meets all necessary requirements for our policies and what have you.
On to this one, give Mr McGann a break. So thank you, Luke. Thank you, Councillor Hart. Council's procurement policy and processes recognise that as contract values increase, so does the risk to council, and so there are additional checks and balances when we make a recommendation about contracts of higher value that we don't see in the policy for values that are in the item 10.10. The procurement process have been completed for this particular matter, so we would be very comfortable to make this recommendation.
Okay, are there any further questions? Councillors, the officers have provided a recommendation with the report for our consideration. Does any councillor wish to move a motion in relation to this? Come on. Councillor Bell, you wish to move the recommendation? Yep, okay, it's to be seconded. Councillor Potter, is it to be opposed? No. Councillor Bell is the mover. Okay, Councillor Potter.
Thanks, Mayor. Yeah, this is good. Birregurra footy ground, get the lighting. What disappoints me a little bit is the lack of local businesses being involved in these contracts. We've got some talented companies in this area, but one of the criteria when evaluating tenders is around previous experience, and you can't get previous experience until you get your first job. But having said that, good outcome for the community, some lighting that is badly needed out at Birregurra.
Does any other councillor wish to speak? Councillor Hart.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. I recognise that this particular project is important for the community. I will be supporting it. I took comfort from the comment from the CEO that this particular project and how it's been handled today meets all the requirements of our procurement policy. So with that in mind, I don't have any reservations in supporting this particular resolution.
Thank you. Does any other councillor? No. Councillors, I'll now call for a vote. All those in favour? The item's carried 7-0. Okay, now we move to item 10.11, Contract 2114, Apollo Bay Harbour Redevelopment, Fishermen's Cooperative Building Architectural Design Services. The purpose of this report is to recommend a tenderer for Contract 2114, Apollo Bay Harbour Fishermen's Co-op Redevelopment Design. Do councillors have any questions? Councillor Hart.
Thanks, Mayor. I understand that there's a revised recommendation. I'm not sure if that's... It's on the screen now. My particular question relates to point 2, and there's a sort of discussion as to what the scope of that project might be, and that may affect the cost. So could we get an explanation as to why the scope may change, or in general terms what that's about? And if we approve this resolution, is there any risk that the cost will be higher than the $264,809, or is it that conversely that it might be a little bit less if the scope changes? Just asking for clarity about that, Mayor.
Excuse me. Through the Mayor, and thanks for the question. There's a few parts in what you said there. With respect to the scope of work and why it might change, we're still pending a financial agreement between the City Deal team and the Fishermen's Co-op. They're yet to secure their funding. When that gets secured, we'll have a better idea of what the total contribution will be. The total contribution will then dictate the size and the amount of work that goes into the detailed design. In the event that there is a variation to the funding that's secured or contributed to by the co-op, the design will then be changed and downgraded, in which case we'll work with the preferred tenderer to reduce the cost of that design.
Potter was first, and Councillor Costa.
Thanks, Mayor. Just in relation to that funding the co-op is seeking, is that private funding on behalf of the co-op, or is that some government funding that they're looking for?
Through the Mayor, and thanks for the question, the contribution from City Deal is a total of 2.19 mil. The current committed agreement is $500,000. Depending on the scope of work, the co-op would like to contribute, I've got to be careful with the numbers here, a further amount to increase the scope and further develop the building, and that any increment on the 2.19 from the City Deal is 100% at the contribution of the co-op.
Councillor Costa.
The Co-op is still going through the process for their lease at the moment, and I understand the footprint is still in question. Will that impact on the architectural services? I'm really asking, is it possible that the footprint will increase or decrease?
Through the Mayor, and thanks for the question. The intention is to alter the size of the footprint, which in turn changes the leasing arrangement between, there's a number of parties involved in the leasing agreement, but certainly the intention is to increase the footprint, change the lease, get that approved, and then that'll confirm the contribution from the co-op.
Councillor Potter.
Thank you. It's a good question from Councillor Costin. If there is an increase in the footprint, is that different to what the public consulted on? Is it different to what the drawings are as part of what went on public exhibition as far as what this City Deals project is going to look like and what it's going to be?
Through the Mayor, again, the design is completely consistent with the development plan that was approved by Council December last year. So all is to do with what was in the development plan, which is a change of footprint and change of usage and design of the co-op.
Okay, are there any further questions? Okay, councillors, the officers have provided a recommendation. That's the revised one up on the screen. With the report for our consideration, does any councillor wish to move a motion? Councillor Potter. Move the revised. Councillor Costin as the seconder. Is it to be opposed? Councillor Potter as the mover.
Thanks, Mayor. Just quickly, look, this is good news. Another step in the delivery of the City Deals project that Council worked very hard to try and secure, and which the public have been heavily engaged in trying to shape it. So I hope this goes well. I hope we don't have to downscale what the co-op want to do. This is an iconic location along the coast in Apollo Bay. It may change in appearance a bit, but it'll still be the co-op, and I wish them all the best, and I hope this goes smoothly.
Councillor Costin, as seconder.
Thank you, Mayor. Just to echo Councillor Potter's remarks, and also to thank Mr Castles and his staff for getting this far. It's quite a juggling act needed to build something along the coast these days, and it would have been much, much easier 20 years ago, but with the new legislation and regulations and all sorts of other things, including our overlays and planning scheme itself, it's a minefield to work through, and thank you to the team for their work today.
Does any other councillor wish to speak? Councillors, I'll now call for a vote. All those in favour? The item's carried 7-0. Okay, now we move to item 10.12, contract 2119, road reconstruction, McLaughlin Street, Apollo Bay, lump sum award price correction. The purpose of this report is to correct an error in the lump sum award amount for contract 2119, McLaughlin Street, Apollo Bay Road reconstruction. Do councillors have any questions of officers? Councillor Costin.
Just if Mr McCann could explain the reason for the error, thanks.
Through the Mayor, and thanks for the question. It was a simple typographical error, hitting the 7 instead of the 9.
Thank you. Are there any further questions? Okay, councillors, the officers have provided a recommendation. It's before us. Does any councillor wish to move a motion? Oh, Councillor Hart. Councillor Costner is the seconder. Is it to be opposed? No, Councillor Hart.
Thanks, Mayor. We've had an explanation. There was a bit of an error with the last resolution, and we're talking about $2,000 on a $600,000 contract. But what I take from this, and I see this as a positive, is that councillor officers are obviously reading the recommendation or the resolutions that councillors adopt. That's a good thing, and that's what this represents or reflects. And so in that sense, I actually think the fact that we're dealing with this today is a positive.
Councillor Costin? No. Does any other councillor wish to speak? No. Councillors, I'll now call for a vote. All those in favour? The item's carried 7-0. If you need a quick break, we might just have a quick 10-minute break. 5, all right. 5 minutes. Okay, councillors, we'll restart. Now we move to item 10.13, Audit and Risk Committee Minutes, 8th of September 2021. The purpose of this report is to receive for information the Colac Otway Shire Audit and Risk Committee Minutes dated the 8th of September 2021. Do councillors have any questions of officers? No. Councillors, the officers have provided a recommendation with the report for our consideration. Does any councillor wish to move a motion in relation to this matter? Councillor Hart, did you wish to move the motion, the recommendation? Councillor Costin, as the seconder. Is it to be opposed? Councillor Hart as the mover.
Yeah, just quickly, I'll just make the point that these minutes are mainly reflect the meeting that led to the signing of the annual report. So by all means, there was a couple of other things. Have a look at the minutes. But the real substance of what was decided at that meeting is reflected in the annual report, which we discussed earlier.
Councillor Costin.
Thank you, Mayor. Councillor Hart, this was your last meeting on the Audit and Risk Committee, was that right? After how long? 10 years. Well done. Thank you for your perseverance. It's not an easy job, and welcome to Councillor White for stepping up to replace Councillor Hart. Councillor Hart's left a fairly big hole in the Audit and Risk Committee, and I guess you already realise it's not an easy task. It requires a lot of long hours and reading, and thank you, Stephen. Well done with your perseverance.
Does any other councillor wish to speak? Councillors, I'll now call for a vote. All those in favour? The item's carried 7-0. Okay, now we move to item 10.14, Assessment of Audit and Risk Committee Performance. The purpose of this report is to provide a summary of the 2020-21 assessment of the Audit and Risk Committee's performance against the Audit and Risk Committee Charter. Do councillors have any questions of officers? No, Councillor Potter.
Thanks, Mayor. I just have a question in relation to the scoring. There's three criteria: less than adequate, adequate, and more than adequate. There's not a lot of marks in the less than adequate, which is great, but I assume that the people on the committee are responsible for the scores, and I'm just wondering whether it's possible to say whether the councillors have more of the lower votes, perhaps in the adequate and less than adequate, as opposed to the other members of the committee. I'm not sure if that's the case or not. I'm not sure whether you're allowed to say whether it is or not, but I just have a query about that.
Process question. So the survey results are de-identified, anonymous.
Okay. Yep.
Through you, Chair, if I could just add that at the most recent Audit and Risk Committee, the annual assessment for 2022, we will actually provide commentary on items that actually assign a score of 3 or below, just to get a little bit more of an indication of where concerns might be.
Yeah, so we won't provide commentary, we will ask for comments.
Sorry, I beg your pardon.
Okay, are there any other further questions? Councillors, the officers have provided a recommendation with the report for our consideration. Does any councillor wish to move a motion in relation to Councillor Hart? Is it to be seconded? Councillor Costin, is it to be opposed? No, Councillor Hart is the mover.
Thanks, Mayor, and thanks for the question from Councillor Potter. I will make the observation, as having been on the Audit Committee for a while, that often the councillors reflect community expectations, and you can have the situation at times where on an issue, whilst the professionals can say that something's been ticked off from the point of view of meeting an accounting standard, it may not be a situation that is considered satisfactory. And without bringing up a whole lot of contracts, I have a list of them in my head. You can have the situation where councillors, and I'm just speaking from my position as someone who participated in this survey, who are dissatisfied with how something has been looked at, if you like. But the different perspective from a professional perspective is that the accounting standards have been met or what have you. So that's just my perception of why you can have a bit of variation between a councillor angle and perhaps a professional accountant angle who have a different focus. As always, we councillors are focused with the community and we represent the community and we bring that element to all roles in council.
Councillor Costin.
Thank you, Mayor. Very good question before Councillor Potter. I don't think it sort of reflects in the chart there that the low scores did seem to be an outlier. There was one member of the committee who scored very low on all questions. And as the Manager of Governance said, we are modifying the survey so that we will better be able to understand why those low scores were given. But on average, there was one member who scored lower than everyone else. So it's a matter of where you set your median or whatever also. Some score between 4 and 5 and others score between 1 and 5. And so it's hard to judge. But it did seem to be an outlier and it's been recognised and the committee wants to know more.
Does any other councillor wish to speak? Okay, councillors, I'll now call for a vote. All those in favour? The item's carried 7-0. Okay, now we move to item 10.15, Transport and Accessibility Masterclass, Sensible Transport. The purpose of this report is to approve Councillor Costin's attendance at the Transport and Accessibility Masterclass on the 22nd of Feb 2022 in Melbourne. Do councillors have any questions? No. Okay, we've been provided with a recommendation with the report for our consideration. Does any councillor wish to move a motion? Councillor Potter will move the recommendation. Is it to be seconded? Councillor Hart, is it to be opposed? No. Councillor Potter, this mover.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. Look, this is a lot of money in a way, but I think these things can be valuable, and I thank Councillor Costin for putting in for going. I know in the past, Councillor Hart and I attended a waste trade day. I went to a transport and road safety day and came back with a contact for solar arrays and electric vehicle charging points and hooked that company up with Shire. So I think there's a lot of merit in this, and I know Councillor Costin will report back to us and perhaps bring me a pen from one of the trade stores or something like that. But we can't go to everything, and I know a couple of times I've tried to get something in Vegas, but the girls at the office have knocked me back. But I support this. I think it's good, and from time to time I'd encourage all of us to get along to something that is of interest and value to the community.
Councillor Hart.
Yes, I'll support this. I think it's important that from time to time councillors give a lot of time when they represent the council at forums such as these. So it's not a one-way street, and I think it's good accountability that we consider these things in open council so that the community can see what's happening and what's the cost, and I'm sure, as Councillor Potter said, that we'll hear back from Councillor Costin about the particular conference.
Does any other councillor wish to speak? No? I'll now call for a vote. All those in favour? The item's carried 7-0. Okay, now we move to item 10.16, notice of motion, Colac East Entrance Roundabout. The purpose of this report is to consider Councillor McCracken's notice of motion regarding the Colac East Entrance Roundabout. Do councillors have any questions?
It might be worth checking if there's a seconder first, because if there's no seconder, there's probably no point going through questions.
Well, that's true. Is this notice of motion to be seconded? Councillor Hart, there you go. Oh, how about that? Are there any questions? Councillor Potter.
Thanks, Mayor. Just having a question of staff in relation to what recent conversations, if any, have we had with Regional Roads in relation to the designs or the perceived issues with the roundabout furniture?
So through the Mayor, recent conversations have, well, if we could probably go back a little way, that council, led by the Mayor, Vic Police, met with Regional Roads Victoria to discuss issues concerning the roundabout and the safety of the roundabout. That's been responded to with a range of works by Regional Roads Victoria. Most notably, I guess, the reduction in the speed limit leading to the roundabout. We've also had conversations with Regional Roads Victoria about changing the colour of the gravel that fills the centre of the roundabout, as well as the fact that the planting in the centre of the roundabout has failed, and council staff have provided Regional Roads Victoria with a list of plantings that we think might be more durable in that location. So at this stage we await those works to be carried out.
Councillor McCracken. Councillor Costa.
Mr McCann, I'm just wondering when council agreed to maintain the centre of the roundabout, and I can see the reason why, but when did we reach that agreement, and did we have an upper limit on the cost, the annual cost that we would commit to the roundabout?
Through the Mayor, look, to some extent I'd have to take that question on notice, but the agreement to undertake maintenance works would probably have been in the order of 4 years ago, I would have thought, early in my time here. The reason for that was that the standard Regional Roads Victoria response for that location would have been to simply place gravel in the centre of the roundabout, and that would have been, in our view, not a suitable response. The issue was that any response which was of a higher standard than that, Regional Roads Victoria won't maintain those works. So hence, staff on behalf of council agreed that we would. But in terms of you know, a maximum amount that maintenance would be, no, I don't recall a maximum amount that was set.
Have you got a follow-up question, Graham?
Yes.
Councillor Costa.
So given it's not a plain gravel surface at the moment, that it's something different, have we already been spending money on that?
Through the Mayor, in a sense, well, you know, we have been spending money because we've been spending officer time in having discussions with Regional Roads Victoria. We've also spent officer time developing, planting lists and some other material for RRV. But in terms of maintaining the area, no, we haven't been doing that work because the work hasn't gone through its defects liability period in a suitable condition.
I think Councillor McCracken, Councillor Potter had their hand up, then Councillor White.
Thanks, Mayor. To your knowledge, Mr. McGann, have we ever had Regional Roads Victoria or major projects come in and brief us about the roundabout design in any way, shape or form? And when I say design, I mean not the engineering side of things, but I'm talking more about, the middle of the roundabout and all that, whether it's gravel, whether it's scoria, or all that sort of stuff.
Through the Mayor, no, I don't recall that.
Councillor Potter.
Thanks, Mayor. Mr. McGann, you said staff had spoken to Vic Roads about the gravel and that the current plantings had failed. Was there an indication that Rural Roads were going to change the colour of the gravel or reinstate what's failed? Do you know what action they were going to take in relation to the request from staff?
Through the Mayor, yes. The indication is that Regional Roads Victoria will replace the gravel and also, as they would need to, deliver the planting in a fit state.
Okay, Councillor White.
Thank you. Just to get some clarity, it hasn't been handed over yet to Council for maintenance. They've agreed to rectify the landscape before handover. Is that correct?
Through the Mayor, correct.
Yep. And a follow-up question, please. Would it be normal and standard practice for to undertake community consultation in relation to design and layout and landscaping in a project such as this? Would RDV usually undertake that sort of community consultation around these sorts of projects?
Through the Mayor, my response. My response to that would be generally not for Regional Roads Victoria. If it was, if it was local government undertaking works such as this, we would.
Are there any further questions? Councillor Costin.
Councillor McCracken, in your last point there, point 6, I'm not quite sure where this is going. Do you have some sort of agreed outcome in mind, or how do you see this working? Will this be something which will come back to Council for decision? Can you explain just a little bit more about that last point, thank you?
Absolutely, I'm happy to. Point 6 really talks about the idea that we don't want progress to continue with the reinstatement of the current design until an outcome has been achieved, ideally at a briefing which RRV and major projects would attend, and councillors have the opportunity to attend too. So we can agree on what might be a way forward. Now, I haven't set in stone what a way forward might be because there are different views on it, but having everyone in the room together would be the ideal process of setting what that might look like. And with Regional Roads Victoria progressing things at the moment, this point 6 basically says we'll just pause for a second while we have a discussion about it. Does that help answer your question, or? Yeah.
Councillor White.
Just a bit of a comment and a reflection on where this is sort of headed.
But we just don't want to get into debate. Have you got a question, or otherwise we can just hold it off for debate?
Sort of a question. You say in the first statement that it's difficult to understand nearly all the approaches and its ambiguous nature. I'm not sure what you really mean by that.
I'm talking about the claw that's in the middle of the roundabout. It's difficult to see on the approaches. So, I mean, I'm able to talk about it in debate, but I don't want to get into that here.
You might have to leave it for debate.
But just that's basically what I mean, in a nutshell.
I have got a quick question for you, Nom. You say you oppose the design. Are you opposing the design of the roundabout or the landscaping of the roundabout?
Well, I'm happy to put landscaping for clarity's purposes.
Yes, that would be better.
Or landscaping design, whichever one you want to call it.
Councillor Costin?
I wonder if point 6 could be amended just to include the points that the agreed outcome we want would include cost sharing and risk sharing arrangements between RRV and ourselves.
I did think about that, and I thought about leaving it open so that I didn't want it to be specific just to a few things. I leave it open to the satisfaction of council, whatever that might be. But I do take your point.
Okay, so Councillor McCracken, you're the mover. Councillor Hart is the seconder. Councillor McCracken. What do you... Oh, is it to be opposed? Sorry. Oh, jumping at it. Councillor Potter as the opposer. Yeah, sorry. Councillor McCracken.
Thanks, Mayor. It's fair to say that this roundabout is not just any old roundabout. It's a very significant one that sits on a major entrance to Colac, and that gives it a level of prominence that other roundabouts may not have, particularly given that this one is at an entrance point, and it's really a meeting of a few entrance points to Colac. Given that we're already spending quite a significant amount of money on an entrance sign, it makes sense to sort of do everything that we can to enhance the appearance of our town entrances. So I won't go on about what the actual feedback has been and the response to the design, because it would be fair to say that we could do better. I guess the point that I'm making here is that here we've got an opportunity where, through circumstances sort of out of our control, the landscaping has needed to be reinstated, and at this point in time we can use this situation to say, well, you know, maybe this is not really the best way to promote and ensure we've got civic pride in our community, in our town entrances. Here's a chance that we can take to enhance that. Now, I haven't put what that might look like, because I think that's a discussion that we need to have with Regional Roads Victoria, major projects and, you know, other key partners as we see fit. But I think at least to have the discussion is an important one. In terms of who is there, I think, you know, we've got to include the two government agencies, but, you know, we might even be open to having some of the road safety groups attend as well. And I had a discussion with someone from one of the local road safety groups yesterday that was very, very interested in the ideas put forward. So I think I'd rather be more inclusive than just excluding someone because they're not, you know, an official member or, you know, part of an official group. I guess in terms of sort of moving forward, I hope that we are able to have a positive discussion with sort of the government agencies and see what can be achieved, because this is an opportunity, and we've got to seize it as an opportunity to make something of this space, because at the moment it could be a lot better, and I don't want to be you know, horrible to the people who might have put this design out there, but I think we can achieve so much more with this. Yeah, I might leave it at that. Thanks.
Okay, Councillor Hart is the seconder.
Yeah, I'll reserve me.
Councillor Potter, you opposed?
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. Look, I was in two minds, but it's probably no surprise to Councillor McCracken that I might speak against it. And he and I, whilst we agree on many things, seem to lock horns over roundabouts historically. But look, I was heartened to hear from Mr McGann that Regional Roads Victoria were agreeing to change the colour of the gravel. I think that would lift the roundabout. In fact, make it even more safer if perhaps the gravel was red instead of grey, and reinstate the plantings. We have to remember what this roundabout's for, and it's for road safety. It's for road safety for that intersection, which is notoriously dangerous, and been a number of accidents there. And since the roundabout was built, there's been a number of accidents. Driver error because people have tried to get around that roundabout too quick. I don't know what the expectations are about how that roundabout should be dressed up, but we don't want to create something that distracts drivers from the main reason why they're using the roundabout. Yes, it's on the approach to Colac, but it's not the entrance to Colac. We don't live in Palm Springs, and I don't oppose the current design, and I'm concerned that how we achieve an outcome that meets community expectations, because community expectations will be different. I don't know how we gauge that. I don't know who's around the table to talk about it. I think officers have been representing us in discussions with Rural Roads Victoria, and I think that's where it should sit. Sorry, Joe.
Okay, does any other councillor wish to speak? Councillor Costin.
I'll support the motion, but I have some reservations. I'm concerned that the more we get involved in the maintenance or the design of the roundabout itself, the more we open ourselves up to potential liability if there are accidents there. I don't see any precedents for council management of roundabouts like this in Regional Roads Victoria roads. And I'm thinking of the roundabouts along the Great Ocean Road. They are primarily for road safety, not a beautification opportunity, and perhaps there's better ways to do this, but it's really the liability issue that I'm concerned about, and I'll keep an eye on as we proceed forward. Thank you.
Councillor White.
Thank you. I'm very vexed on this question because aesthetically I find it a very unattractive space, and it is the entrance to our town. I agree with a lot of what Councillor McCracken has talked about, but I also understand that it is about road safety, and that's primarily the most important thing, keeping people safe. I'm not sure this is the way to go about to achieve what Councillor McCracken wants to achieve. I think we might be getting into the operational space here, and that we should actually be working with our council officers to advocate on our behalf and progress these discussions and this sort of work. I'm not sure this is the way to go about it. I think I know that council officers have had a lot of discussions and have spent a lot of time trying to get this right, and have had some concessions, and then it will be handed over, and that may be the opportunity for us to do some more. But I just worry that we're getting into the operational space, and that really we should be working with our council officers to advocate and work through some of these issues on our behalf.
Any other councillor wish to speak? I just might quickly say a couple of words. I drive through that roundabout every day, and often a few times a day, and I think I've driven past most of the accidents, and I've seen the outcome of most of the accidents as well. And really, as far as the current design goes, we'll never know how good it could have looked because it got smashed up straight away. It's a very busy roundabout, even without the tourists on it. So I hope to see what it would have looked like if the tourists had have been on that roundabout when it was at 100 kilometre speed limit. But it's had trucks drive through it, grannies drive through it, young people drive through it. It's had I think an offal spill near it, an AdBlue spill, and, given the situation with AdBlue, we'll probably dig it up and extract it and keep some trucks moving. It's had everything happen to it, and what council officers have done, and I've been included in some of those meetings, is work to, for starters, the number one priority was speed limit reductions to make the roundabout safer. And the agencies were very responsive to that, but they were very, heated discussions, and we also had the police involved in those discussions as well, because they were a bit sick of attending accidents out at that roundabout. So they have been very responsive, and they're responsive with the traffic management changes, and they have improved the speeds at which people are going around that roundabout. So, and then also in some of those discussions were about the aesthetics of it and trying to get the what was there reinstated, which they have actually come to the party, and acknowledged that there did need to be some changes there. So that's actually very good. What I will say though is that I think there will continue to be accidents on that roundabout. The signage in the middle of it, driving through it a few days ago, I'd already noticed that some of the direction signs in that roundabout have been sideswiped. So, you can even look and see that there's still some cars are sort of driving over the edge of it. I don't know when, at night, whenever. So when we take over the maintenance of it, the practicality of it is going to be really important, and how many times we're out in the middle of that roundabout, the traffic management involved, there will be a significant cost. So practicality and neatness is probably forefront of my mind. Whether we need this NOM or not, yeah, we probably really don't, but, it could be trying to achieve other things, but, something neat, something that's a reasonable cost for us to maintain would be ideal. But it is a heavily used roundabout. Councillor Hart.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. And not only is it heavily used, but it's at a main entrance or approach to Colac, and appropriate landscaping can actually enhance the road safety by making it stand out a little bit more than it does in difficult weather. There is precedent for consultation on roundabouts. There was a lot of consultation with the Lavers Hill community on the large roundabout, which is a regional roads roundabout, where Great Ocean Road meets the Ridge Road, as I call it. I think the other issue with this, and why I'll be supporting this, have a look at all that Colac Otway has done to enhance the appearance of its roundabouts. Much smaller, I know, but Colac Otway has made an effort to make the roundabouts look better, at the same time as not affecting road safety. So I think we're entitled to expect, the community is entitled to expect a better job from regional roads, better landscaping or however that may be, and discussing expectations with the community. It is such a significant feature. There is precedent for discussions with the community on these sorts of features, notwithstanding their road safety aspect. And I really think we deserve better from regional roads, and that's why I'll be supporting this resolution.
Councillor McCracken.
Thanks, Mayor. One of the points that was raised was about opposing the current design. I guess the reason why that word was put there is to send a very clear message to the government agencies that, we're serious about this. If we say things like we're not supportive or, we have concerns with, the simple fact of the matter is we're not going to get their attention. And to be quite frank, I don't want Colac Otway Shire and this particular issue to be fobbed off. I want it to be taken seriously. So that's why it is put like that, so we can at least bring the government agencies into a proper discussion, which includes all councillors as community representatives. I agree with the comments about the roundabout being there for safety. I don't think anyone would want an unsafe roundabout. Having had discussions with some of the members of road safety groups around Colac, even as near as yesterday, putting red scoria there might actually be a challenge, particularly in, well, this time of year when you've got maroon sort of sunsets. You might actually find that the roundabout is even more difficult to see at particular times of day. And the suggestion was made, well, why don't we just have pure white rocks on the roundabout because it's clear at a lot more round the clock. Now that's just a suggestion, but these things can be teased out when we have the discussion with the agencies. There have been other discussions about having mounds and whether that's safe or not. The fact of the matter is there have been crashes at this particular roundabout. If you have a mound, I guess it's more likely that a crash is going to be contained on the roundabout. But if you don't have a mound, the crash just goes straight through it, still ends up on the road or on a barrier. So it's not like you're stopping the crash in any way, shape or form. And who says that safety and aesthetics are mutually exclusive? Why can't they go together? There's absolutely no reason why. So let's do our bit and try and, improve this to, instead of, being fobbed off and the risk of not having our voice at the table, let's do something proactive and at least make sure that we have the opportunity to discuss this with the agencies as a group of councillors and community representatives.
Councillors, I'll now call for a vote. All those in favour? All those against? The item's carried 5-2. Now we move to item 10.17, report of informal meetings of councillors. Please note that the purpose of this item is to report the informal meetings of councillors and does not require a council decision. Thank you, councillors. Okay, councillors, I understand there is a proposed item of urgent business in relation to the purchase of a truck-mounted elevated work platform. CEO, can you elaborate on this item?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I just would like to introduce why this urgent item of business has been prepared by officers for councillors to consider. This matter, it relates to a relatively recent opportunity being made available to council to consider the purchase of a second-hand piece of equipment that we believe is important to our operations. The processing of that matter had been expected to be able to be fully done under delegation and within policy. However, that would also require some exemptions in relation to going to the competitive quote market. And when we had a good look at that, we felt that it wasn't covered adequately by the exemption clauses for officers to exercise the exemption, and therefore we needed to bring this to council to have it addressed. The opportunity, whilst there isn't a hard deadline, it does generally need to be considered in the next few weeks, and this was identified after the agenda had been closed. So unfortunately it couldn't make the agenda in time for that to be included for all of the public to see and understand. However, we feel that it's an important opportunity to have council consider. So that's the reason.
Okay. So we have the motion, there's a motion up on the screen that council resolves that the matter of purchasing a truck-mounted elevated work platform meets the criteria for urgent business and cannot conveniently be deferred until the next council meeting. Okay, do I have a councillor to move? Yes, Councillor Potter. Do I have a seconder? Oh, is it, yes. Well, this is just whether it gets to urgent business, not of the actual item yet.
This is a procedural motion.
This is a procedural motion, yes. So Councillor Potter has the mover. I don't think I need a seconder for a procedural motion. No. I'll now call for a vote. All those in favour? The item's carried 7-0. Okay. Now I would like to, that's passed, I would like to table the officer's report relating to this matter, which will be made available on Council's website as soon as practical following the meeting. Okay, do councillors have any questions? Councillor Costin.
Thank you, Mayor. If I could just ask the CEO, what impact will this have on our budget and longer-term financial plan? And secondly, what occupational health and safety, public safety safeguards do we have for this sort of equipment?
So through the Mayor, thank you, Councillor Costin. This purchase is already accommodated within our current financial plan and will be funded from cash reserves that are put aside for the purpose of replacement of plant. So there is no budget implication. This is very much about the policy as it relates to the procurement process, not financial as such. In relation to the safety, the appropriate safety considerations in relation to operating plant, there are two aspects I would reflect. One is that we're very fortunate to have some really great mechanics in-house. And so we're able to provide really excellent maintenance services to make sure that any damage or concern or issues around plant can be promptly addressed, and also make sure that we do regular and ongoing maintenance. However, there are some specialised checks and services that need to be done on particular plant at particular times, and therefore we may schedule those to be done externally. That's a general discussion, not so much about this particular plant, about how it goes. So, and in terms of the people, the safety of the operators, that's about ongoing training, appropriate tickets, etc., which our services and operations teams would have.
Are there any other questions? Okay. Then we have the motion in front of us. Is there a mover of this motion? Councillor Potter. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Costin. Is it to be opposed? Councillor Potter.
Oh, thanks, Mayor. I won't talk to it. It's a necessary piece of equipment. Staff need it. I like the way that they've brought it to us to achieve a good deal for the council.
Councillor Costin. Any other councillor wish to speak? Councillor Hart.
Yeah, just quickly, Mayor, I note that this is a used piece of equipment, and I note also what we're deciding here is whether to not follow what would be the normal procurement processes when you come to buying used pieces of equipment. You usually don't have many exactly the same pieces of equipment of exactly the same age available at the same time. I understand that this equipment is quite young in terms of the life cycle of this equipment. So I'm happy to support it, but I just think it's worth having that clarity of what we're deciding today.
Okay, councillors, I'll now call for a vote. All those in favour? The item's carried 7-0. Okay, the council agenda for this meeting, published on the 10th of December 2021, recommended council move into closed session to deal with the Port of Apollo Bay tender report. I wish to advise the meeting that the Chief Executive Officer has withdrawn this item from the agenda for further review. As such, there is no longer any need for council to move into closed session. The minutes of the closed council meeting held on the 27th of October 2021 will be listed on the next closed session council meeting agenda. Therefore, that concludes today's council meeting of the Colac Otway Shire. Thank you for joining us. I declare this meeting closed.